So I'm really excited to talk about postpartum care today. And so I wanted to start off with just asking you all, if you had a baby or you plan to have a baby, like, did you, by a show of hands, like, did you write a birth plan? So usually in a room, like, most women will be like, oh yeah, I've written a birth plan. And like, I know we all know, like, loosely, like, we can't hold on to these things strongly. And then I ask the same women, I'm like, how many of you have written a postpartum care plan? And like, nobody raises their hand. Or I'll ask a client and she'll say, well, you know, I might get a postpartum care doula. Like, I hear less and less of that. I might, you know, have like my mother-in-law come over, or I might have, you know, a meal train. Like, I might have my community get a meal train for me, so I have meals. My partner might be able to take off 4 weeks. Like, that's kind of loosely what that ends up meaning for people. And what I like to kind of ask into early on in pregnancy is also like, well, what else like are you going to do for you to help heal after you've gone through childbirth, and kind of taking care of your body and yourself. And so what I feel like there's a lot of things that you could have on that list, but for me, it's really about educating women on the gamut of options that you have with Chinese medicine and the gamut of options you have with herbalism. And also, I'll talk a little bit about yoga, but I mean, that could be like a whole other talk, but today I'm really here to focus on the acupuncture and the herbalism. So first off, I just want to say that like kind of the basis, like we were discussing this a little bit, of how Chinese medicine sees birth and what that means for us when we're treating a mom postpartum. So the process we have in the back of like the kidneys, we have Mingmen fire. So that's kind of like the furnace in our body. It's what holds the life force, the life energy. And for women, the thing in our life that is going to deplete that the most is childbirth. And so thinking about like this fire that stokes us and keeps us vital, and then we have a baby and womb is open, our belly, uterus is open, and it exposes us to this temperature or this environmental cold that comes in. And so traditionally, not just in Chinese medicine, but a lot of traditional cultures, you see this practice, we call it mother roasting, and it's kind of been coined into the Chinese tradition, but it's actually more of a concept that's been used in a lot of traditions. And that's to, you know, like quarantina, to keep a woman in for 40 days, to keep her in a warm, closed space with like a fire going, and sometimes she would like sit up against, like near the fire and have her back warmed, and that's great. Like, I am all for women who want to close themselves in and be supported and get nourishing warm food and really, really restore afterwards, but realistically speaking, most of the people I see are like, I can't do that. Like, that's not gonna work. But I'm like, but we can take pieces of what that means and we can integrate it, because there is a wisdom and there is a way in which that really does help women, especially like we can see it when they have more children, that every time, continually hear this, every time like it's a little harder this, or my recovery was a little slower this time, and I hear that a lot, and that relates to that whole thing of like, how much did we care for ourselves afterwards? How is that going to affect us down the road, whether we have more kids or not? So what Chinese medicine says is like we would consider warming foods. We were just talking about this, like warming stews and bone broths and things that are going to really nourish mom in those days, and also temperature-wise, like wool blankets, and some women are swollen, so they really want to do ice pad. I totally did that. I was really swollen, and the ice pads felt good, and so even more of an impetus that we would want to bring warmth and like counterbalance what we had to do to take the swelling down. So we use one of like the easiest ways to get warmth in the body is these are moxa sticks. I usually use loose moxa, but like for the purpose of warming mama, we usually use moxa sticks to either kind of circle on the front of the belly or circle on the back, and a lot of that has to do with constitution. Another thing we were just talking about was that, you know, some things work for people and some things don't. So with everything that I'm saying, I feel like there's a need to educate people about options, but there's also the biggest need for you to listen to your body, and if it doesn't feel good for you, we have to honor that, like 100%. So it's all about you feeling like you know what's available, and then feeling like you were able to make the choice and say like, this like moxa feels great, or this like is way too much heat for me, because for some moms it's like too much. So I usually go to see my moms, or I offer them in the first 6 weeks, I offer them in-home visits because I want to encourage them to stay home and not have to worry about going out and like dealing with interrupting a nursing pattern, and just like being, home and being able to really relax into a treatment. So typically in the first week after they have the baby, it's recommended like at least twice in that week to get mother roasting done. And then following up like maybe weekly or 1 week and then bi-weekly. So I think that's really important. And then I also think what's also really great for mamas postpartum is to get acupuncture. And why I love acupuncture so much and like combining the treatment is that so much stuff can come up. Like I was writing a list of all the reasons why of like basically things that we can use acupuncture for, because I find that so many people just don't know. Like mastitis, we can have low back pain, upper back pain, milk nursing issues, milk production issues. Even a lot of mamas that I've seen, they are still bleeding for like a while, but it's just like a light trickle, like just like spotting, and it just like kind of doesn't end. And it's just like a simple thing to help treat with acupuncture. So, there's ways that it can support you and not mean that you have to get like a gamut of medical intervention. Obviously, we're working in tandem with your healthcare provider, but there are definitely ways to support you. And then the other big thing that I think is really what I've seen, and I know in my own experience, is that we as mamas, I think it's like a nature's process, is when we have our baby, like we have all this like oxytocin and we have all this adrenaline, and that's sort of what fuels us to get through like waking up a million times at night and like be really kind of working pretty depleted. I think there's a reason why that happens. But what I start to see is that moms can't switch out of that mode. And what that means is like moms are exhausted and they're like not sleeping because they can't drop into their bodies, and we're kind of constantly in that adrenaline response. And so what I think acupuncture does really well, what I think herbalism does really well, is, and yoga, yoga absolutely, is that it reminds ourselves that we need to go into rest and repair. That's part of milk production, that's part of healing our tissues, that's part of our baby sensing that things are safe. And it's funny, I've actually had recently a bunch of moms who have 2-year-olds that have like never sleep. Like they're like still waking every few hours, and it's like this whole thing. And I'm not saying this is like the end all answer to things, but what I have noticed with people is that when mama is so taxed, baby responds, and baby like nobody's resting. And so when she is able to come in and drop into this deep state of calm, it like translates over to her baby, and baby like started sleeping a little bit better. Like a little bit means a lot when you're not getting any long gaps of sleep. And that kind of leads me into the next thing that we learn in Chinese medicine, and that is the belief that when they say for a year, I don't know who makes that statistic up, but I think what I've seen with my daughter is that sense when they finally like know there's someone else. That thing with kids where they're like, no, I'm me and you're you. And so that sense, but prior to that, and I still think it exists after that, but prior to that, you are one energy field. So when mama is getting treatment, it is totally and 100% affecting her baby. Like, I may not want to put needles in your baby, but I can definitely put needles in mama and feel that energy shift happen to baby. And we see that, you have like letdown when your baby's crying like 30 miles away, and it's like the exact moment, like things are really in sync. Or if you're having like a really emotional day, like baby might be acting a little bit more fussy. So there's definitely, I think moms see the evidence of that kind of constantly. So taking care of you and making space for you as a mother is so important. It's important for you to model that and to model that to your child, that like if you're not taken care of, baby's not taken care of. And then I think we see that in that loop of just like, it can affect like the entire dynamic of a family. Depression, anxiety, Another area that I think is like under talked about is when moms are starting to wean, and not like completely wean, but even just like cutting back, like once babies are starting to eat more solids. I have personally experienced, and I know I keep talking more and more moms who are like, oh my gosh, like I thought it was like your hormones are just doing this crazy swinging thing of trying to sort of come back, but sort of like sometimes I'm nursing 3 times a day and sometimes I'm not, and so man, acupuncture and herbal medicine can really support you in that time, and so leading kind of more into the herb side. I love using herbs for moms that are postpartum, from just the basic sitz herbs, which sitz bath herbs, which probably some of you not know what sitz bath herbs are. Maybe familiar, sort of. So sitz bath herbs are usually a concoction of herbs. There's usually astringents, which are going to help tone the tissue, and then some wound, like to help heal the wound and disinfect the wound and kind of help healing of the perineum. And then they're usually used for vaginal birth, and you kind of brew them and either sit in like low bath water with them or in the sitz bath kind of receptacle that goes in the toilet. And so the idea is to, same thing, like warming and circulating qi in that area and helping things heal quicker. There's also topicals that can be used for women that have cesarean births, topicals that can help once the deeper scar tissue is healed, but definitely with like nerve issues or numbness, circulation, so the scar tissue healing, and then obviously like nipple creams are also kind of more standard, common. I think we have sitz bath herbs here. Yeah, we do. I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing, but also supporting mom and her mood is huge. You know, like allowing that thing that I said where mom is like, someone has told me, I only have one child, but someone has told me with baby number 2, you're like sleeping and you're like not worried, but baby number 1, you are worried. You're like, at least my experience is like, it just is all so new. And so I have a lot of clientele where it's like, I can't sleep because I'm like worried about baby, and it's like that. Just sometimes giving yourself some chamomile and some herbs that are safe in breastfeeding, but that are going to help your nervous system just like tone it down a few notches can be huge. Like a few hours, 15 minutes of sleep when you're not sleeping is huge. So they're great for sleep. They're great for mamas that have had really hard births. Like sometimes, I want to talk a little bit about breastfeeding. It's funny that kind of came up. Is like I think there's this huge push for fenugreek, and it's like, go fenugreek. And what I've personally seen and experienced in my body with it is that sometimes our bodies are just like wiped. And that to me is not a fenugreek picture. That's actually more of like, we need to go to the deep tonifying herbs and like give mama more chi, and then that way her body like knows how to do it. It may not be so much like I don't have the galactic-god response. It's more like I just don't have any chi. Like I'm like wiped out. And so figuring that out, like kind of playing with is, you know, this isn't working. Like what else can we do instead of what sometimes I think is like we advise somebody something and then they'll stay on it forever because it's like a safety thing. They're like, if I get off this, I'm just afraid, but then they're on high doses of an herb that could, you know, mess with other things. So I think that there's like a kind of like a buffet of herbs that can support lactating moms. And what else do I want to talk about with herbs? Herbs are just awesome. Really, my biggest thing that I've seen is like mood support, the fluctuations, sleep, and also feeling like that roller coaster at the end, which often happens. There's some like I don't want to like pigeonhole one herb, but there's some herbs that can really smooth that out for people. And so, and they're safe when you're breastfeeding, and it just makes moms like come back into their body, and that's so important. So I think that's kind of everything. I'll just say one thing about placentas. So we were kind of talking about that. So the placenta medicine, which I know I did it, and it's hard to say what's like. I don't know if anything's right or wrong. I think it's all just like experience, and we have to share it and see what works for you. But definitely in the Chinese tradition, placenta is part of our materia medica. It's an herb in the materia medica. But like I was saying, it's not usually just given as placenta. It's like in a formula, and we use it like a deep yin and blood tonic. So it's cold. It's really cold. And if we're talking about warming someone up postpartum, and you're coming from someone who's already really cold, that could be like totally stagnating for that mom, and really hard for her to digest and just like to get the medicine that she needs from it. So I might lean just like preferentially more towards the preparation with ginger and some steaming to kind of make, because the sense that I have is that with all of the sort of traditional philosophy, it's to cook things, it's to make stuff available. Like, it's not about it being raw and like intact. It's like actually like we want it to be pre-digested so that mom can just like, it's just like energetically, like I don't want her to have to like run across the house to the upstairs. Like I just want her to like lay there and just medicine comes. So I don't know. So I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that, but I would definitely lean more towards probably the Chinese preparation. So we'll see. I'm curious to hear what other people have to say. But overall, what I want to just say is that I think that there's so many options for mamas postpartum, and as other women, I think we can empower each other to encourage people to reach out for help, because it's not always easy, especially with first baby. Like we're like, I'm going to do this myself, and receiving support feels kind of like endless sometimes at the beginning, and then also amongst practitioners and amongst like just to like network more and like lean on each other for our wisdom, because I think that it's good to read books, and it's good to like look in, like I have Aviva Rom's book over there. I really like her it's called Care After Birth or something. She's awesome. I love all her books. But and she has a lot of recipes, and that's great, but you know what, as a postpartum mom, you're supposed to be hanging out. Like, it's not your job to do homework, and there's so much stuff on the internet. I mean, there's everything you want to, like anything you want to hear is on the internet, anything. So I think it's wise kind of talking about the frenugreek thing, where people kind of roll with things and you don't know as a mom or as a practitioner like what they're actually going to do with that information, is to kind of guide them to someone that's going to look at their constitution, look at your constitution, and just advise you. Like maybe one consult, they'll be like, you're kind of cold, you have a colder disposition, like maybe lean towards these herbs more, this can help you. And it doesn't have to be like a full thing, but I think it's good, because we will see the effects of that over time, especially with multiple pregnancies, because you know that's just kind of what we hear. And then last plug is yoga. Get into yoga classes with someone who really is aware of sort of the physical alignments that need to happen postpartum, because I think that those are huge. Like, can't even be spoken to enough, of just supporting pelvic floor and deep abdominal strength, and how much that plays into everyday life and how we feel in our bodies. So yeah, so I'm going to leave some time for questions. Any questions? Yeah.
Is there a benefit for sitz bath herbs after months and months? Because of course I got them with good intentions, but used them a few times.
Yeah. So like everything's healed up and you're good?
Yeah.
So I mean, they would be good. A lot of sitz bath herbs are very similar to what we would be using for like things that like need to be drawing and astringing. Like I've read, I think in Aviva's book, she talks about like you can bring baby into the bath with you, so that like the umbilical site, like it'll help heal that up. So you could kind of save them for a rainy day if that's the case. I'm thinking a little bit more like if I was going to move away and things are healed up, that I would move more towards like something that was calming for you and your skin, and just kind of like that. We talk a lot about just putting mom and baby in like a bath with chamomile or oats or something. So it's like, it's not focused so much on tissue regeneration. You gift it to somebody, you know? Yeah. But yeah, like probably different herbs once things have gone back to place. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions?
I'm sure I do.
Or you can always shoot me an email, please, anytime. The biggest thing for me is that we have a place to ask questions and someone to support us, because it's just this big community of people who, if we knew that there was options, like I think more women would take them if they knew. But it's so much, it's like they didn't have any idea that it was there. We just don't talk about it enough. So
How long the warming stuff is recommended? Because I feel like I went from pregnant as you know, she was my internal heater, and now she's my external heater. So
Right.
I kind of go towards colder things, especially now with the warmer weather.
Yeah.
But it's been almost 3 months, so do I need to?
I would say that one, you could be listening to your body. Like temperature is going to change dramatically. Some women, and most, we get those hot flash. Like our hormones are shifting and changing a lot. So I would listen to it. I would also I always tell people look at your stool. Look at your bowel movements, and if things are looking really loose, then you maybe need to look at warming your foods, because usually we see cold in looser stools. And it tells you so much about what you ate and how it's reacting. I mean, not that we're all wanting to look there, but it's there's a lot of information. And also when you get your cycle back, noticing am I having pain and a lot of cramping, and that can give you information about maybe I need to cut down on the ice cream and whatever, because that is also something that's gonna cold is gonna make circulation not flow quite as much.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would definitely, they're all rules of thumb, and I think that listening to our internal clock a little bit, and these different, how you feel, and then also your bodily functions and how those move are going to give your personal prescription on what you need to do. Yeah.
And then is anyone,
Yeah, you can keep asking.
Am I interrupting? How about anxiety and lack of sleep? Would that be chamomile then?
Chamomile's a great one, and the reason why chamomile is so awesome is it also, they say that chamomile, they say this, I really feel like it is. I feel like whether it's an energetic transference or it's a real transference physically, they say that chamomile can sometimes pass through breast milk and help babies with, relaxing and colic. And I know my daughter, we have used chamomile and catnip since pretty early on, and I see a huge behavioral difference with her when we use it. So chamomile is a really great one. Oat tops are one of my top ones for moms. So it's the tops of the oats are harvested when they're green, maybe soonish. And we have tons of them around here. If you know someone that gathers things, you can put in a request. Also, Sonoma County Herb Exchange, they have locally grown things in the county. And so those, what you do is you actually simmer them. You would simmer some of them for 15 minutes or so on really low heat, and it'll make this yellow kind of mother's milky kind of just amazingness. And so what that does is it really helps to soothe our nerves. And a lot of it is just soothing nerves, and then if there's a component to you just being adrenally exhausted, I usually shoot at nettles and kind of go that way. And so yeah, but it kind of depends on what you're eating, your constitution, your temperature, all of those things would point me in a direction. But those two are good to start, chamomile and oat straw. So they'll both be good for you, okay for a baby, and then when you can give them to your kids too. So
I was wondering with the chamomile, if my husband has seasonal allergies.
yeah.
So would that
right.
Is there something to watch for?
Some people are allergic to chamomile, so it's good to do a skin test. So you can just put a little bit of tea on someone's skin, and then if they have a rash or something, especially with kids, obviously that would be a really important thing to do. But not everyone that's allergic to ragweed is allergic to chamomile. I think that was kind of a myth at one time, but it's not. Yeah, it's not. I think it's actually pretty rare to be allergic to chamomile, and it's a great digestive. It's one of our. If I have a kit of something that I'm bringing with remedies, traveling, chamomile tea bags are in there for sure. Digestion, eye issues, sleep, it's kind of like if I have nothing else and all I have is chamomile, it's the MacGyver remedy for everything. It might work. It very well might work. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How do you typically see moms?
And
how,
so usually, you mean postpartum?
yeah, and do you ever see them prenatally?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Most of the people that I see, I prefer it to be people that I have seen through their pregnancy, only because it gives me a lot more information. I feel like I can totally work with people that I haven't seen, but it definitely can help us kind of when you walk into a room and mom's tired and she'll set a baby, it's not the best time to get an intake and be like sitting there for an hour and a half. So it's nice to have that established, and so they know me and I know them, and it can be like really kind of like a seamless thing. So typically I'll see them in pregnancy. I mean, I see people through their entire pregnancy, and then I'll usually just kind of let them call upon me right after they've had the baby in that week, and just say like, you know, is it a good time? Are you feeling up for this? You know, sometimes people just like don't want anyone around, and that's fine too. And so I shoot to at least see them once, but maybe twice in the first week, and then the next week I'll see them once and see how they're doing, and then maybe 2 weeks later. It kind of depends on where they are.
And you go see them at their home, or
Yeah,
they come to you?
I offer that to them. I really, with a baby that little, I really like to see them at home. Yeah, and I encourage them to kind of just let people come to them, because I think it's helpful to relax. If the whole point of the session is to relax.
Indeed.
Yeah, totally. And I do also like to teach people how to do things, like, you know, the MOXA stuff. I can show a partner or someone else there to how to do that, and then just help guide it. Because it's funny, I had a woman whose baby was breech, and I gave them the sticks or whatever, and she's like, how's it hurt me with it? Yeah. So it's like sometimes good to have a little guidance, right? It's like good to have a little bit of, and she's like, I'm gonna come to you for this. Like, but so I think it's good to kind of give people tools, because I'm not here just to shoot a bunch of lingo at them, and I really want to give them practical things that they can use that aren't going to make them be put out, like financially or just energetically. Like, oh, I have to like go to city to pick this up. Like I try my best to get things that are accessible to them and abundant and sustainable. That's kind of my big thing too. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
So here at Thrive, you can contact me here at Thrive.